Hello and welcome back, and today I'm going to be using this air dry clay to make some things. So let's get started. So to start off, I just divided up the clay into 3 pieces and I'm rolling it out. And the first thing that I'm going to cut out is a hibiscus. So I made the petals a bit different for each one so that I could lay them on top of each other, wrinkle them a little bit, and they would look a little bit more realistic. Smoothing out all the sides, fixing up a few pieces, and then curving the tops up. I did fold 2 on top of each other, but also made sure that you could still see the line, and then the stem. With the little pollen bits on it. Adding all of that on, making sure everything is all stuck. And then time to paint it. So this part took me a while because I wanted to get a good blend in. So I added red, then pink, and then paint dried really quickly, so I had to move really quickly with how I painted it. And then adding in the orange. And again, it dried really quickly, so it didn't blend super duper well. So that's what took me the longest part, was just the whole blending part of it. But then after I got that, I then did yellow on the edge of every single petal because I thought that looked really nice, and I saw a few photos and I wanted to do that. So just mixing the colors together and just blending them to kind of create like an orangish yellow on the outside. Adding in a little bit more pink because I did want pink still to be in there. And then more and more yellow all the way around the edges. And then here's where you can see how they're folded a little bit better because the 2 petals actually have the yellow on this next one. This one right here, how it has like a little bit more yellow blended on top because they felt folded on top of each other. Just doing that all the way around, making sure that they're all blended, plus that the yellow is all the way on the outside. And then once I started to finish up that, I just added in the yellow on the bottom so that you could not see the regular part of the clay if you're looking at it at a different angle. But I didn't go all the way to the bottom because I knew it was just going to stay at the bottom. And then painting on the stem, and this one I tried to use a darker red, but I couldn't really find one that was too much darker, so it kind of blends in. And then for the little pollen, I did a darker red. I mixed some red and some orange together, but then they blended in too much, so I changed it to just an orange. Adding in a few final parts of it, and then time to put on a gloss coat on it. Just painting it all the way around, making sure to get every little bit of it and make sure that there aren't too many spots that are still white by the end of it. Like right here by the stem, or not the stem, but then painting the bottom too so that it doesn't accidentally mess it up if I push it a little bit, and to make sure that all the paint stays on the flower. And here's how it looks in the end. I think this one turned out really good, and it's a good start to all of these projects. For the next one, I decided to do 3 sand dollars. So I just rolled this out and rolled them all into little circles, And I did 3 because I wanted to have a few more smaller ones versus one big one. And I didn't have a lot of clay to work with, so this was the best option to have a lot. This didn't really need to be painted on top with another white, but I kind of wanted an off-white that wasn't the same color as here. So I just painted on top of it with the white that I made. And I like this white a lot better than the other one from when it originally dried. Painted on the sides, and this one was the most difficult because it was the first one that I did, so I had more clay to work with, but then on the other ones, the clay started getting a little bit thinner. Anyway, I painted on the bottoms because a bit of paint attached to the bottom and I didn't want random spots of green or red to be shown. So I just covered it all up. Started to run out of some paint, so I used a sponge brush to try and get a little bit more. But then after those were dried, I drew on each and every sand dollar with just a pencil. So after I did that, then I went around with a daughter tool and slowly went all the way around with black paint around each and every line. And later I do wish that I had done like a lighter black, because I think that the black is a little bit dark on the plain white and it kind of makes it pop a little bit too much. So if I had to go back and do this again, I would do a more gray kind of color. I fixed up where some of the pencil lines were by just adding on some white paint on top, but with the rest of them I realized it was just easier to go back in and erase them once the paint had fully dried. Next, I did this one and I tried to make it a little bit different compared to the other one, and I was just figuring out what worked best on it and what didn't work on the first one. So this one I tried to make the lines a little bit smoother, but there are a few spots where I accidentally messed up, so they're a little bit more like blotchier. But these two I was fine with that being a little bit more messed up because I just wanted to make sure that this one was the best. So with this one I made the circle star to be a little bit more rounded, and then I dotted out each of the paint before so that the lines weren't as thick. And I do think that this really helped it because it made the lines a lot thinner, and I went slower on this one so I could make sure I didn't have as many errors as the other two. Finishing up the last little bit, and then going in and erasing the pencil lines from the other two. And then this one, when I was erasing it and I was wiping it away, it kind of got a little bit messed up, so I just fixed it myself and added in some paint, but it was a little bit off, so I just got some of the pure white and painted it on top of the sand dollars, so it fixed it all up. Making sure that's all nice and perfect, and then here they all are. And just like before, I got a clear coat to put on every single one, just like this. And this was much easier than the other one because there wasn't any little pieces that I had to make sure weren't fully painted on. And then after I did that one, I did the sides, and once I finished them, I put each of them off to the side so that they were able to fully dry. And here they are. Even though I do wish that I had done a lighter color for the lines, I do think that they still turned out pretty good. And here is each individual one. And even though they are a little bit messed up, it just makes them look even more real. And now for the final one. So for this one, I really wanted to make, similar to how the flower was like a ring dish, I wanted to make a seashell ring dish. So I just first started off with making a thicker bit of clay and then sketched out a seashell design, and that was pretty small, so when I cut it out, I just went over it a little bit more, like this. I'm going away from the lines a little bit so that this whole seashell would be a little bit bigger. Going all the way around, and then finishing up the last bit. And then after I tore it all off, it was really rough, so I smoothed out the edges with some water. Just went all the way around, smoothing them all out. And I don't have proper tools for this, so if I actually had proper tools, they would be much better, but I didn't. And then I just went with my fingers and I just pushed through the clay to create like a shell indent, and I tried to make sure that it wasn't fully even and that the lines were actually shown just like this, how you can see in between each one the lines were still there and it wasn't fully flat. Adding in some water to make sure it's even and smoother, going on the top to make sure it's smoother, and then just making sure that it's not even. And then after that's done, I painted on a light blue on top of it, which as it started to dry, it became a really dark blue. Not a super dark blue, but much darker than the original paint that I used. But this one was much easier to paint because it is the simplest with no design whatsoever and just plain blue all over. Getting the sides, making sure that it is fully coated and all even. And then painting on the bottom. And this one, for some reason, it was really bumpy on the bottoms, which might just be because I didn't have proper tools. Painting on the clear coat. Fully painting on it, and then getting the sides. And then trying to smooth out anything on the bottom. And then finishing up, making sure that it is all fully covered. And here's how this one looks in the end. Even though it's really simple, I liked how it turned out. Anyways, what do you think about all of these that I made today? And I'll see you next week. Bye!